It is just a huge honor today to be podcast interviewing Sousan Alexander. Thank you so much for coming by today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm feeling extra bald. Not only does she have beautiful hair, it's blue. I have no color in my hair, and it all fell out. Oh, it's turquoise? And you're the owner of I Will Repair. And I think that's really cool. And I was referred to you by a couple of your customers, Sally and Macy, and they were just saying what you're. So I invited you to come on the show and tell people, about you, your journey. How did you even get into the cell phone repair, or which ones break down more, iPhones or Androids, or just tell them, talk about whatever you want about that.
Okay. Well, actually, I've been living in Ahwatukee for now 16 years. My background, oh my gosh, I grew up in Washington, D.C. area for 26 years, went to school there, college, worked. Why am I technical? I don't know. I guess from the time I was teenager or even younger, when my parents used to buy me dolls, the first thing I would do to them is take their clothes off, take their legs off, and look inside to see what's in there, then what makes it move. And then once there was nothing in there, I would lose interest and toss it. So soon after that, my parents started buying me trucks or toys that were useful, had some kind of use to them. Dolls went out the door. My brother, I should say, I come from an 8-kid family. I'm originally from Iran. My brother, from the time...
Was that very common? Like, I grew up in Kansas, and in the 60s, the Catholics had...
Lots of kids.
Lots of kids.
In my culture, you got to be wealthy to be able to have a lot of kids. But having 3 to 4 kids are pretty common, not 1 or 2. So it's kind of an extended family as opposed to a nuclear family, which is in U.S. So extended family, the village kind of raises the kids. You have the aunts and the uncles and the friends that constantly come over. So our household used to be, when people called our house, they used to say, "Oh, you're having a party." And my father would say, "No, it's just the kids, and their friends." So at a given time, there were always 15 to 20 people in our household. So anyway,
and that's how the majority of the world lives. I mean, there's 7.5 billion people. Only a billion people have this, like you call nuclear family, United States, Canada, Australia, England, where the kids are kind of kicked out at 18.
Yeah.
And then when you get old and you can't take care of yourself, then you're put in a nursing home. And you have a strange babysitter babysitting your kid. But when you go to the whole rest of the world, who's raising your kid is your grandma and grandpa who live with you, and then your grandma's sister and aunt and uncle. And it just seems so much more happy and natural.
Yes, and grandparents don't go to nursing homes. They remain with the family. Family take care of them, as are the Mexicans here. They are like extended family. They take care of their parents as their parents take care of them.
So you call it nuclear family versus extended family?
I was educated here. I guess it's, from what I was told, it's really a socio-economic situation where you can't really afford to have more than 2 kids. You're both working, so economically here, both husband and wife have to work in order to make the ends meet, or at times if they have a child, one has to stay home and the other one has to work, because if the other one were to work as well, the cost of childcare is more than what the second party would bring in. So it's kind of like you're limited in that because of the fact that it's difficult to afford, difficult to look after children. But I think in the middle America, there's more extended families. Families are larger.
Well, I always remind people, the number one call to 911 in every state, in every year since they started, when they started 911, I thought, that's going to be when someone has a heart attack at the grocery store or a car wreck. Turns out the number one call is domestic violence. And you can't beat up your wife when your brother's living with you and your dad's sitting over there. And you know what I mean? I just think it's a healthier, functional way to live.
Having lived on both sides, I would say it has its pros and cons both ways. The extended family, you absolutely have no privacy. There's no privacy. There's nothing, you can't sneak out, do anything. Everybody knows what you're doing. Here you have much more privacy. You make decisions on your own. You kind of have to own up to your own mistakes. Over there, everybody has to have a say-so about what you do with your life, what you study even, what your profession would become, which was the case with me. But going back to, helping my brother, fixing the cars, I was always fascinated with that. Anyway, coming over, my parents sent me out saying, you're going to have to become a doctor or you become a lawyer or an engineer. That's all they knew at that time. It's like there was no other profession. And here I was an artist. I actually painted a lot, lots of painting, and I wanted to do art. And they go, well, if you're going to study art, you're just going to come back to Iran and stay with us forever because you'll never make money. And so you have to study something that you can study. So shortly after that, the revolution happened. So things changed. It was basically now you could go study what you want, whatever it takes to stay there because it's not safe coming back here. So it was a different mentality. I chose computer science because the money was able to be sent at the time, and I was really good in math. It was easy to keep my grade point average up with math. But once I got to the third year, programming became very boring. It was very tedious. And as I talked to more people, well, what would I do? Oh, yeah, you sit behind a computer, write codes. I'm like, well, I don't want that. I like to be moving around and about. What can I do that would let me do that? So I left college and started working for a little bit and soon found out I was more interested in finding out what makes the computer turn on and work than actually using it. Same goes with the computers. Again, taking things apart and fixing. So I started looking into some schools, and at that time, this was 1989, 88, actually specialty education was becoming very forward. So people like, you don't have to go get a traditional four-year degree. You can go now get a 1 year or 2 year specialty, and it will really get you a job because you have actually skills that the company want. No more a company is going to hire you and spend a year training you. So with that in mind, I found one of the top schools there, went to the electronic school. The moment I got there, being always the only female, but it was just felt like, oh my God, I should have been here from the get-go. I loved it, loved the practicality, loved the theory, and then the hands-on. And before I graduated, I basically, with a college education I had, they said you make a perfect network engineer. So I'm like, but I want to become an electronic tech. I want to sit there all day, fix cameras, TVs, I wanted to go work for, at the time, Circuit City before they went out of business. And they would interview me and say, I think you would do great in our showroom. And I didn't know why until he said, let me go take you on a tour of the warehouse. And he started telling me how, they got long hair, cigarettes rolled up their sleeves, and it's really not a good environment for a pretty girl to be working at. And so I started seeing the writing on the wall. After doing 6 different interviews, a Swedish gentleman said, I'm going to tell you what they're never going to tell you because they're afraid of the laws. Okay? They're not going to hire you because you're female. It's a very masculine environment, and it's not because they don't think you can do the job. Some of them don't, but most of them have the confidence in you. You graduate at the top of your class. However, they can't control your environment for you. So they're going to have to keep worrying about this sexual harassment stuff, the language. You're better off moving on to the computer side. You're going to be repairing them. You're going to be installing them. You don't have to necessarily be just programming them, but accept it and go for it. So my career went 27 years in IT engineering. From there, I got lots of certifications in it. I worked, one of the largest contract I worked on was modernizing our embassies worldwide. So I was the lead engineer. I did all the training, the documents, the QC, building equipment, to going there and implementing it in our embassy. So it was a lot of fun. And then by then, had my daughter, and flying and traveling around the world wasn't going to be an option. And I wasn't going to stay in DC because I never liked the weather. So moved here in Arizona in about 2000. And I wanted to first stay home, but I still worked for a year. The company wouldn't let me go. And after a year, they finally, after 9/11, I got laid off, which was great because I had a ton of stocks that they had to buy out. And I bought a bunch of Cisco stocks at literally, it was $75 a share. I bought them at 15 and just let it sit. for the time being and see what happens. And then after about 2-3 years, my challenge was my daughter was diagnosed with autism. I was homeschooling her, so I was very aware of the developmental issue. I spent about $10,000 going to Philadelphia in an institute to learn how to grow a child's brain. So she was being educated by me since she was 6 months old or earlier. That was being a puzzle solver. So she became my puzzle to solve, and I knocked on every door I could. We spent a ton of money on medical stuff, and eventually we just kind of focused on nutrition, diet, keeping her off gluten and casein. And she's now graduating this year from Desert Vista. She is also half attending EVIT, doing graphic arts. And by the time she graduates, she has actually 4 credited courses for college. So all good.
Good job, Mom.
Yes. So her personality keeps the boys away, and I'm all happy for that. So I don't have any issue. She doesn't have to become a social butterfly. Then came my career. Let's focus. By the time she was in 2nd grade, I knew she'd be okay. So I went back to school, got my degree in aeronautical science at Embry-Riddle. I really wanted an engineering degree, but we would have been moving to Daytona, Florida, and having a child with that condition was not in the cards for me. So I finished that. At the same time doing the Embry-Riddle, I got my mechanic license, AMP, FAA, AMP license, because I wanted to prove to the technical world and aviation that yes, I can do it. I can fix it. Doesn't matter if it's engine, doesn't matter if it's a component. If I can do electronics and computers, I can do that too. Unfortunately, same problem happened here. Honeywell had a very uncontrolled masculine environment, and again, a female being in that environment would lead them to lawsuit perhaps, or God knows what they were thinking of. And I just wasn't getting in. They would offer me IT jobs, but every time I applied for an aviation job, they wouldn't call. And I did get a wonderful opportunity with Delta back in Atlanta, but at that time my husband said, I am not moving back to East Coast. That's not gonna happen. So that had to be let go. I went back for an IT job with a law enforcement agency. It's called Department of Public Safety. It was a sisters agency. And I worked there 5 years, completely revamped their infrastructure, did a lot of projects for them. And I was sitting there going, okay, I've trained everybody. They're doing the job. I have nothing else to do. I'm bored. What do I do? And there wasn't really anywhere to go there. So I quit, and I said, I'll just spend some time, figure out what I'm going to do in my life. Staying there and retiring was not going to be in the cards for me. And after I grew my own, I had also a side business, fashion, online. I grew it for about 9 years, and it was good side money. Paid for a lot of fancy ski vacations around the world. And I said, well, why don't I just, if nobody's going to give me a job to repair, I'm going to start buying phones and fixing them and selling them on my store. It was crazy. It went wild. And my sales went to like $6,500 a month. And I'm like, wow, this is really good stuff. Let's look into it more. I got a phone that I couldn't fix. It was a Samsung. And my knowledge was at the time limited. It was just whatever I was just teaching myself. So I went to a store to try to get it fixed. I started looking around, and I'm like, so what do you guys do here? He says, we repair. I'm like, really? Because it's ironic. When I was getting out of the electronics school in 1990, all the moms and pop shops with TV VCR repair were closing down because the manufacturing were not giving you parts anymore. They were putting everything in one little board. They were making it so expensive where people were just throwing their electronics away and buying it again. So we became a throwaway society. But here we are now, 2017, we're actually repairing. When did I didn't get that memo. And I guess because I never take my things to be repaired, so I didn't even know they existed. So when I found out they had been in business for several years, so I said, do you do computers too? He goes, yeah, we do, but most of it is phone. I said, wow, okay, I'm gonna look into this. So I spent about 3 months looking into all the major brands, and I decided on a small startup franchise because, frankly, I did not have the capital. So you need about $120,000 to start up with the other guys. There's a lot of upfront fees. And I figured, you know, I should be able to do most of it myself. I'm grown up. I know how to start a business. I know how to do LLC, do the paperwork, and I already know how to do the repairs. So I shouldn't have to pay all that money. So they waived my fee, and they kind of assisted in the process of first launching my mobile business, and then from there looking for a store to get into. And that's kind of what brought me to where I am today. So that's really it's not my only passion. I do love painting, and I'm very creative. But solving puzzles, I think it's where it comes to me naturally. So for me, when something breaks, it doesn't matter if it's the kitchen sink. It doesn't matter if it's our water cooler or whatever. I have to know how to fix it. And I'm curious to learn to fix it. And honestly,
now, were your other 7 siblings like that too, or were you the only child?
Only my middle brother and my father, actually. My father had an incredible knack for mechanics. So like I said, we had several cars, and we never saw a mechanic. It was all done by my dad. My dad will do the troubleshooting, and my brother will be doing the fixing. And as a matter of fact, when the revolution happened, he got sent to Sweden, and by simply getting a job at a gas station, they found that he had incredible mechanical aptitude. So they immediately hired him as a mechanic while he continued his degree as a mechanical engineer at the Swedish college there. And he spent his career actually designing robotics for manufacturing. He traveled all over China, Japan, with several Swedish companies that make robotics for factories, particularly cars and consumer goods.
So your store is I Will Repair on Chandler Road between 48th Street and 50th.
On the south side.
On the south side.
Right next to Frank and Lupe.
Frank and Lupe and Wendy's.
And Wendy's, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
and Frank and Lupe, that's the restaurant. How long's that restaurant been there?
They just opened up, I believe, in July. Yes, it was July of last year. They just opened up, and they're starting to get a good clientele in. They have a beautifully successful store up in Scottsdale, which is what caused them to come down and open one here. So I'm happy for them because I get some traffic into that strip. That strip has always been kind of a quiet strip, not so much traffic. But I'm close to I-10, which makes me accessible to people out of Maricopa City and Casa Grande, which have no repair shops. And I just want to point out one thing. There's one thing that sets out my services to anyone else. And we do have a big corporate chain that's coming into Ahwatukee soon, is that...
For phone repair?
For phone repair. I don't just do phone repair. It happens to be a lot of my repair because now everyone has one. Not everybody has a computer, but everyone has a phone. Just by just the numbers, okay? But I do computers, laptops. I can do security for you. I can set up small businesses at home-based businesses where they can have disaster recovery, shop around for their best telco, and set up a whole network for them. I also do securities. Malware control. I could do tune-up. I can change your hard drives. I can upgrade your PC. I'm getting a lot of game consoles coming in through. To me, a game console, I always tell people, I said, if it has an electronic circuitry in it, I can fix it. It doesn't matter what the function is.
Gaming is huge.
It is huge, and
when I
my
see the numbers and the
growing.
growth, I mean, I can't believe I mean, like Nintendo is a 100-year-old company. They didn't start yesterday, but my God, I can't believe how many. I mean, there's probably 1 billion people on Earth playing video games.
And you know, I tell people, video games are nothing but a PC. It's all it is. It just has a very souped-up graphics and a very, very high capacity kind of a microprocessor. Other than that, all the infrastructure is the same as another PC.
I can't do video games anymore.
I don't play them. I only
had
fix
4
them.
boys, and I realized I got addicted to it. I would come home from work, and me and the 4 boys, we bought that Nintendo 64. And it had 120 stars you could get. And I came home every night with my 4 boys, and we'd spend how long, right? 2-3 hours a night.
Mario.
7 days a week. It took me half a year to get the last star. Then I thought to myself, oh my God, I've done this 3 hours a day for half a year. I'm never buying another game again. It was like,
Well, I'm a Trekkie. Do you guys remember an episode of the Star Trek New Generation, if any of you watched it? There was one episode they had where they came across this new race. And this race was very sneaky and wanted some of their resources. But in order to take over their ship and their resources, they had to kind of get them to comply, of course. So they came on board as a gift. They gave them these little gifts. These little games they gave them. So all it was this game, and this is, 15, 20 years ago, which was amazing for Star Trek to have that on there. But now you think about it, goes, oh yes. So it would just be a little glass they put in front of their eyes, and they're watching this game. With their brain, they had to take these little cones and force them down into a hole. And every time the cone went into the hole, it would put a little zap, electrical charge in the brain that would release serotonin. And they would feel good. Oh, oh. And then they kept doing it where until the time they were just walking around zombie, fixated on the game, forgot all about running their ship. And the aliens were basically coming on board, taking over. I see the video games, honestly, is the same way. Is the way you're being rewarded, it kind of gives you a high, much like gambling. They say gambling is not about it's an addiction, and it does pull pathways into your brain where you're gonna have to satisfy that chemical high you get. So it's not about losing or winning, it's the high. So I think video games.
But when you and I were little, the phone was on the wall, and this kind of computing power was an IBM mainframe.
Yeah, in a storage place somewhere.
That only Fortune 500 companies and governments had. So I actually have a hard time calling this a phone, because in my walnut brain, it's a computer. But you're right, the PC, the iPad, the phone, just versions of IBM mainframe computer. And I also think it's funny when we were little, when you give out our number, it'd be our home number. Now when they give out your number, it's your cell phone, but they'll give you a separate number and say, well, here's my home number. And most of the people are canceling that. So this is really...
Well, our memory is going out the door because we don't have to remember anything because you can always access a device.
Yeah. This is probably the biggest game changer I've seen in my 55 years. So give them some advice. Which phone's better?
In my industry, I'm not supposed to name brands or do anything.
You need to be agnostic.
Yes. So I would say in terms of, in our industry, a phone that holds value is what matters. Just like what car do you want to buy, that when you go try to sell it, you can get best value for it, right? And why is it a car will hold value? Because it's probably easily repairable, cheaper to repair, right? Or it has more durable and lasts longer. So those are the reason why a product becomes more popular and people recommend it and other people buy it. It's the same thing goes in the cell phone or even in tablet environment, right? So, as opposed to...
So what kind of phone do you have? What is this? That's an Apple?
I am, unfortunately, as an engineer, strictly Apple product based because I get the best value for my money. It doesn't break on me, and I can still sell it and make good money. And I don't have to constantly repair it, as opposed to
So what are
Windows.
people, what is your day-to-day life? What are most people bringing into you?
So Samsung phones, the S series, are extremely expensive to repair. So the displays, those thin glass, which is an OLED technology that is only exclusive to Samsung, cost somewhere between, on the latest model, let's just say in a Samsung S8, the glass alone is $262. And since it's all fused together, that we have to heat and take time to take the back off, take everything off just to get to the glass, it's a 2-hour work. So for me, it's an $85 to $100 repair labor plus what you pay for the parts. And I always set those aside. I don't mark up my parts. I charge people exactly what I pay for the parts, and it's my labor. So if you want me to work on your device, this is what it's going to be. So that's up to people to think. Some people are very Android-minded, and there are people that are iOS-minded. Android seems to be easy for some other people, and it's not so easy for other people. So it just really depends. But iPhones have, bar none, the most marketable value around the world. because these guys are considered luxury items. So if you go to Brazil, you pay $2,500 for them. If you go to Asia and Europe, I think Europe is $1,500, and in Asia market can be up to $2,000 to $2,500
for an iPhone.
For an iPhone, because it is considered a prestige. It has why? Because it built its brand based on durability and longevity, and people trust they can have a MacBook Air or one of those older computers. They're still running. When I go overseas, I get amazed about some of the older technology that people are in their hands and they're working and they love it. And when I used to sell my devices, and I still do when I'm done with them and move on to the newer models, is most of the people that have interest to buy it are all over the world. So usually I ship it overseas.
Wow. So what is your average clientele? What are they bringing you? Is it because they dropped the phone in a broke?
I started out with...
Did they drop it in the toilet or the swimming pool?
Yes,
what's your...
All of the above.
if you had so give us a range of your
one client of mine said, he says, you know, Sousan, there are two types of people, because honestly, I have never broken my phone. I've had devices in my hand forever, ever since my career started. And I've never broken any. And I have dropped them quite a bit. They said there are those who break, and there are those that don't. There are either those that break their device and they continually break it, and there are those that never break it. So I don't think it's just that particularly an accident, is that it happened to you and it never happened to you before. I think when it happens to someone, it happens to them very often.
So you're either a breaker or you're a knotter.
Maybe, yeah. And at times when people come to my shop, I have the open part of these, and I have even the motherboard out. And I show people, because you can only see them under microscope. The components are so tiny, you can't see it with naked eye. And I see it under microscope so they can have better appreciation of how fragile these devices are. And how you be tossing them. I have a lot of people that get mad at somebody and it goes up against the wall, I have people that dive into a swimming pool, forget that their phone was in their pocket. And also I have people that have been hiking and their phone drops and survives the crack. And I have people that simply drop their phone 5 inches and it cracks. You never know. It all depends on where it lands, how it hits, and how it affects the glass.
Ryan's broken his phone 3 times. And it's always when he throws it at my head. And I say, I got this big belly that's soft, right?
Exactly. Hit me there, that at least the phone will survive. It is. And then game consoles that come to me often because they generate a lot of heat because of the graphics and because of the microprocessor. When they accumulate a lot of dust bunnies inside, and the fans, and they have built a mechanism in them where it doesn't burn the fan off. It actually, once the fan ceases to turn, it'll give them a red light and says, your unit is too hot, shut it down, go for repair. And so most of those is the good cleaning on them. And then typically a CD player is a problem with the game consoles, and sometimes it could be remote. So
I think what's most funny about that Nintendo is that all the major brands anybody can really think of, especially out of Japan, Nintendo's the oldest company.
They are,
name any
Isn't
Japanese...
Nintendo the one that made Wii? That Wii is their product. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I just sold one. It was the Mario Brothers.
In fact, I was reading the other day,
edition.
Bloomberg was talking about they have so much cash reserves that they don't have to have any sales for I think it was 50 years.
Yeah.
So they could just sit and
Atari games, right? Atari was the first ones they came out in the 80s.
I believe that was the first at-home console that not at an arcade gallery.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember having computers by in early 1980s. I had computers, and then we had those, floppy disk games we would load, and all it was is a ball being bounced around, and you had a lever you had to pull back and forth to hit the ball to get it to go. Yeah. So
and what's funny is I never really got too into video games in college, because when I went to college in 1980, it was $0.25 a game.
Yes, it was.
And back then you made about $1 an hour.
Yes.
And you could go through those 4 quarters in
no
15,
time.
20 minutes.
Right.
And I felt like it was gambling.
Yes.
Because and I just thought to myself, and I loved Defender. And then do you remember Defender and Pac-Man? Oh
yes.
my God.
Those were the 2 I played. thankfully for me, it was never a pleasure thing. I was very much into sports. So I was in varsity volleyball while I was in college. So for me, that came first. That was my high, playing racquetball, sports, and skiing. So I think for kids that don't get into sports, that's probably how they get their high.
And you know what the new hot
and feel good
sport is now that's exploding? Pickleball.
Oh, yeah. You know, I used to say, when I get to be 70, maybe I pick up golf because I find it an extremely boring sport. So pickleball might be another one. I said, I haven't gotten old enough yet. I'm still skiing, so I'm not there yet. So maybe when I turn 70.
The problem I hate about golf is, you know, when you eat a hot dog on every hole, usually by the third hole, I want a nap. I can't.
Oh, forget about the hot dog. The ladies with the alcohol come in with a cart. You know, it's like, how do people play sports where they're drinking and eating the whole time?
So, is your name is I Will Repair? Is that the website too?
Yes, it is. We started out with a franchise name, as I mentioned. 2 months into it, we had some issues with the franchise. They were new. And like any new company, they were not forthcoming with providing us with the proper resources that we needed. And so...
When you say we
as in the other franchisees.
Oh, okay.
We had only one franchisee in Chicago. 2 were coming on board new, so they would have been second, third, fourth. And I was hoping they were going to grow more. They told us they would be. By the end of last year, they were supposed to have 10 franchise locations. It didn't happen. And then the other 2 that came on, they were complaining about lack of resources, lack of support. They weren't getting the training. They weren't getting this. And so finally, my supplier offered it. And he says, you know, let's think of a brand. We'll just brand on our own. And all of you guys are going to be adopted with me. You're going to get no fees ever for the stores. We're only going to build to 10 stores. When we get to 10 stores, if anybody wants to open a new store, we will then start doing some fee scheduling. But it would never be like your standard corporate franchise fee. It would be mostly probably half of that. But all the ones that are going in right now, we will never pay fee. And I knew I could survive there without having to worry about paying those fees because, as you know, franchise collects the fee whether you make money or not. And they also collect their fee for your gross income, not your adjusted income. So that's gross without you having paid rent, having paid employees, having paid for parts. They collect their money anyway. So I kind of see the road down the road and I'm like, I'm too old to be sinking and I'm not a sinker. So I need to get a parachute and jump off and go somewhere that things are going to be done properly. We should have our website within the couple of days. It's fully reviewed and I've already gone through it and it's beautifully done. Our logo and everything is done. I rebranded about 3 weeks ago. And I went ahead around the carriers and gave them our new cards. And I frankly like the name better because it explains what we do. I don't have to justify anymore. Because so many people would call and say, your name is this, so what is it you do? And I'm thinking, it does say tech repair, but I guess people don't see the rest of it. So when I say I will repair, then they're going to say, well, what do you repair? It's like, it's great that you ask. Everything.
So say it again, what you repair. Video games, phones,
computers, TVs. With the TVs, you know, I have a mobile service, so we can come to your place if they're so big you can't bring it in. They usually have 2 cards in them, so I can come in, troubleshoot it, order the part for it. Better yet, I do.
Get the remote. It's on the.
Yeah.
It's right on the fireplace. It's behind.
So we do component level troubleshooting, meaning that I don't take your main board and throw it away and buy you another $400 board. I fix the board. And that is a service. There is maybe not even a retail place in the valley that has it.
So how many employees?
For now, it's me who I am looking to hire. I'm a little
your husband
bit
work for you free?
picky. He doesn't have any skills, unfortunately.
Is that the one that's
He doesn't have any batteries, and we're all out of AA's, though. We
okay. Well, at least now we have a contact.
Exactly.
But I will be posting on Indeed, I hope I'm going to be soon doing that. I try to reach out to ASU to try to hire some students on a part-time basis. ASU is a little bit difficult, and they have a lot of, I don't know, stones to go through and jump to be able to get there. And so I kind of let it go. And I tried to get some of the students come. They couldn't even, they canceled appointments to show up for an interview 3 times. Well, if you do that 3 times in a matter of a week, would I really want to interview again? Probably not. So it's dependability, reliability, people that can actually show up on time and leave. And I think that would be probably pretty hard.
I graduated from ASU, and I see these kids coming out with such amazing amounts of student loans that they're forced to live with their parents. Mm-hmm. And what you did is what I see the flip side of that, the kids who go to like DeVry. Have you heard of DeVry International? They'll go to DeVry and they'll do like an 18-month program that
and
land
they're making
a
money.
rockin' hot job at Intel right out of the gate. And then you see this poor girl and I'm like, well, how much student loans do you have? And she says a number and it's like, that's more than my car. And then I say, what's your degree in? And she'll say like communications. And I'm like, wow, I think everybody at Desert Vista at Mountain Point really needs to start getting on top of this student loan level of debt. I mean, the United States has more student loan debt than credit card debt. It's over $1 trillion.
This is a whole lot of other topic that we should talk about another time. But yes, it is. And I think it's for most part on purpose. When you get a child out of and our education at the public level in universities, it's so redundant. It's so old. There are so many scientific discoveries and proof that are disproving already for years what's being taught in schools, but they still want to keep teaching the same old thing. I tell my daughter, I say, honey, just go get your grade, but just ignore what they're telling you because most of it is wrong. And you have to, it's kind of like the parent have to educate their kids, but this thing, you can get a lot of garbage information out of this, but you can also get awesome information out of it. So everything you need, an entire library of the world is at your fingertip. You just have to know where to look and educate yourself with what the scientists are doing today, what quantum mathematics mean today, what other dimensions even are that are not being taught in the school. And so, yes, you're right. They go get a degree and then they don't have a job and they want a job. But I also think we have a generation that doesn't want to start from the bottom and work their way up. I think they should just come right in and be a manager and get paid $70,000 a year. A lot of talk has been said about that our new generation don't feel that they have to really work like the way we did, from the bottom up and working our way up. My first job out of electronics school paid me $20,000 a year, and they had me travel 5 days out of the week. I didn't even see my bed until Sunday. $20,000. What was I making with $20,000? Of course, 27% of that goes to the government. It's nothing. But I learned that the more I learn and the more I move to the next job, another contract, the more I broaden my knowledge, finally one day is going to say, Susan, you're worth this much to me. I'm going to hire you. So within 5 years out of my school, I became very highly in demand. I didn't even have to look for a job. I had to choose who I want to go work for because the skills. They wanted my skills. So it wasn't like they had something personal with me. It was, you have the skills we wanted, we're willing to pay you for it. So when you get out of college, in my opinion, they should have a skill set that really translate into a profession, a own business, or a job. And they're not getting that. So why should they owe money for that?
They come out with a communications major and a degree in history and philosophy and Socrates and Plato and Aristotle.
All the redundant stuff.
And that's all the media talks about. But they don't talk about welding schools, plumbing schools, DeVry, specific jobs. I know several people from DeVry, like Intel.
DeVry is a 4-year degree program. It's a technical college, but it's a 4-year degree. You get a bachelor in network engineering, in IT security, in now it's disaster recovery has its own specialty. When I did it, we did everything. Now it's like it's become so big that it's split into specialty of its own. And Dubai has all those specialties. So does ITT.
But my friends that have gone there for the last 3 decades, what they liked about it is they were working so close with people that wanted to hire them. So it's like, here,
That's right.
we're going to give you this machine.
That's right.
Because when these guys graduate, that's the machine we use. So it was that close symbiotic deal
Yes.
that they all, pretty much everyone had jobs before they even graduated.
That is true, and I think with me having gone through both public and a private education with Embry-Riddle, is the relationship they establish with the companies are amazing. And when they have job fairs, you know, companies are coming specifically because they know that they have done the training and courses that are specific to the company's needs, and they can hire the kids to immediately just go right in there work for them. You know, there's just no more money there, I guess. I believe the money is there. They just don't want to spend it on the employees to really re-educate you. They want you to come in and be able to produce. And if you're not producing, then, or you're not, you can, you know, they don't have the time to put you there for 6 months.
Is that your broker or your lawyer or your lover?
Hardly.
Broker, lawyer, lover. It's got to be one of the three, right?
But I appreciate you having me over, and I love what I do. This is the first place I felt rooted enough to actually open a business. I had many offers in DC to open my own technical consulting business, but I turned it down because I did not want to root to DC. That's not what it was going to be the long term. And when we moved to Phoenix, we lived in Scottsdale for a little while. It's a little too artificial for my taste. And when we moved to Ahwatukee, I just love it. I love it because I've been there 16 years, and all my neighbors are still the same people, which is shocking compared to what happens in Scottsdale. As soon as you say hello, come, let's have dinner, well, we're moving, you know. So it was so transient. So this is one of the first places I can actually call home and consider it a community.
Well, you know, I grew up in Wichita. I was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas. And Ahwatukee is just, it's a small town.
Yep.
I mean, it's just 85,000 people. Because then you have the largest city park on one side, an Indian reservation, and
Right
I-10 on the other.
Yep.
And it is...
We're nestled in.
And I'm embarrassed. I almost never even leave Ahwatukee. The only time I have to leave Ahwatukee is to go to the airport.
That's right.
If I'm not going to the airport, I mean, you know, and my kids always tease me, go, Dad, all you have to do is cross I-10. I'm like, give them the keys. Well, then you go do it. Yeah, I just love this.
And we live on the Lakewood community, so for me to live in a desert and live on the lake and have my mountain view, I mean, that's like
But you know,
paradise.
that's why I started Tukeetown, because like today on, you know, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and email groups, you open up and it's just on. But what I like about message board is, like you just said, Lakewood. So you would write on today's active topic, you know, somebody just posted, beware all Lakewood residents and Lakewood right-of-way homes. Attention. Please attend the board meeting April 10th. ADOLT already owns 5 homes in Lakewood's right-of-way. When a 32nd Street interchange build, why isn't ADOLT buying the rest of Lakewood row homes? I mean, I love the fact that, and if they want to, see what businesses are available, so they don't have to leave Ahwatukee. They can just go right to businesses and look up all the categories. If they're having an issue with their daughter to school, they can go right to schools. And then is it Mountain Point or Desert Vista, or is it one of the 4 middle schools? I'm old school. I like the organization of a message board. I don't like the open up Facebook and it's just an endless. I like Twitter. I mean, Twitter is interesting, but how are you going to fix where the exit is on the 202 on Twitter?
Right.
I mean, it's entertaining. It's fun. I love pictures of cats. I really do. But I think it's I see all the social media as more endless news feeds and mostly entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I see message board format is trying to get something done.
That's true. That I agree. The 202, it has a pros and cons to it. It's as a resident, no, of course I don't want it there. It's noise, pollution, sound. I lived in Scottsdale when they finished that the edge last piece of the 101 from Shea Boulevard to the Princess Drive, and then the traffic started going through. the noise itself. I mean, I came out and I thought the beehive just set up shop right next to my apartment.
Yeah.
And I came out looking, I was like, what is that humming noise? Where did that come from? And I found out it was that extra noise that I was hearing. And at that time, we were about half a mile away from the highway. I live on Lakewood Community. We're a lot closer than half a mile. So I'm only wondering how it's going to do with the noise factor, with pollution. And as you know, the environmental study showed that it's equivalent of smoking 9 cigarettes for the kids that are going to be attending Lagos. And one thing our wonderful city forgot and ignored was that environmental study. And the lawsuit's still in Sacramento pending, and yet they came in and started building their highway anyway. I wonder if it was somebody private who needed to like build a home somewhere, but he had a lawsuit pending in a court, could come in and build it anyway and ignore it. But our government tramples over our rights on a daily basis, and most people just feel powerless against that.
And that's in every country
around the world.
Every continent.
Absolutely.
The only people that live the good life are the penguins on Antarctica.
Actually, Antarctica has got a lot of countries, and 90 countries have interest in there and have bases there. Places that people are not allowed to go.
You said smoking 9 cigarettes a day. I talked to a computer repairer one time. He says that when he takes a computer off, when people are smoking in the house, he said it's just amazing how much tar and gunk and nicotine. Have you ever seen that?
I hope she never would watch this video, but I had a customer come in with a PC that would freeze problem. And when I looked at it, it had about this much of what we call dust bunnies, blended with dirt, blended with cigarette tar. And I looked at it and I said, you know, I have to first clean this. This has to go through a car wash before I would even turn it on to see what's going on with it. You don't mind, right? And there's a charge. She's like, oh, no, that's okay. You know, it's my dog. So I took it outside of my shop, and I took one of those air spray and just blew it all out first, and then brought it in and tried, and then I took the power supply out, and it was just covered with stuff in it. So the only thing matters for a computer is that if it suffocates and can't breathe, then you're going to have a problem with your hardware. Yeah.
So how do they contact you?
They can contact me. The phone number is 480-626-0666.
My God, that's a lot of sixes. You got 5 6s in there.
I know.
480-626-0666.
For those who don't love the devil's number or all these crazy stuff, I mean, I don't really care about that stuff. But that must have been why it was available, because it was all 6s in there.
It's like
because you can't get round numbers anymore.
I asked hotels one time. I said, "Why do you really not have a 13th floor?" And
That's
they go, as crazy it is. I mean, when you tell people they're on the 13th floor, you're going to have a chunk of people who say no, and then that messes with our scheduling and our booking. The easiest thing is just not to have a 13th floor.
And you know, ironically enough, 13 is a prime number, and and in sacred geometry, it's a very good number. It's a positive thing. But again, it's all perception, right?
Yeah.
It's all about.
And your website is iwillrepair.com.
iwillrepair.com. It should be up and running within the next couple of days. It should be launched, and it would be launched with already 6 locations on there. We have a location in China, a location in Dubai, and we have 2 locations in California, one in Las Vegas, 3 locations in California, 1 in Las Vegas. I'm going to be in Phoenix, and we may have a new one coming up in Florida soon.
You're a mover and a shaker.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming by the house today.
That.
It was very nice to meet you, and I really learned a lot.
Thank you.